Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, special edition of the Terrible Podcast. I am Alex Kozora. Joining me, as always, is Dave Bryan. Dave, Steelers training camp day 2, at least for us, is wrapped up as the Steelers have concluded their Thursday practice. Much lighter today, the team in shorts and shells after being in pads yesterday, so a little bit lower intensity, less to talk about practice today, but still a lot for us to discuss.
Yeah, and for a point of reference, July 29th, 2021, as Alex mentioned, second practice open to the public at Heinz Field took place earlier on this Thursday, and looks like you got the raindrops to stop just in time. There, they probably couldn't have planned that any better in that window there. I understand that it hasn't rained since, by the way, or at least not in certain areas there. So. They got, I guess it dried out in enough time and got a pretty decent practice in, I take it.
Yeah, it poured on the way, and I went through, I think the Squirrel Hill Tunnel. On the other side of that, it just started pouring like crazy. But once I got to the stadium, it lightened up, and for practice, there wasn't a drop. So really worked out well, like you said, because I thought for sure today was going to be a partial or a rain out or something like that.
All right, let's see here. Shall we start with the housekeeping and the injury list and who went full, who went partial, and who didn't go at all?
Yeah, Mike Tomlin, from an in-practice standpoint, had said that Jalen Samuels limped off the field and Dax Raymond had an injury that happened on the next to last play of practice of the 2-minute session. It was on the far side, and I thought he went down, but then I just couldn't see anything, and it's just hard to tell, so I really don't know much about the exact nature of that injury. In terms of other practice participation, let's see, not practicing really at all today. That included Stephon Tuitt, with unknown, just coming back after missing the spring. Eric Ebron with the elbow. A lot of guys today were, and Cody White as well, and hamstring on Cody White, according to Mike Tomlin. So the specific nature of the injury now with Cody White. A lot of guys were in pads but didn't do a lot today. That included Zach Banner, Anthony Coyle, J.C. Hassenauer, Chukwuma Okorafor, Kevin Dotson, Melvin Ingram, TJ Watt, Joe Hayden. Those guys are either very limited or individual, not in team drills. Devin Bush also not in team. Dotson's working his way back. He had a helmet and pads on for the first time today, so he's making progress. J.C. Hassenauer went through a little bit of the warm-up stuff and then ran on the side next to head trainer John Norwig. So again, he's, I think, close to working his way back full. Zach Banner, not even a helmet today, so really waiting for them to kind of get him ramped up and to be a full go, because he certainly could use some of those reps. And then, Joe Hayden with rest. Anthony Coyle with a stinger went through some individual work but was not part of team, but he should be back full, I think, within next couple of days.
Did you mention Ingram?
Yeah, Melvin Ingram was in pads but was not part of team today. Neither was TJ Watt. So your starting outside linebackers were Alex Highsmith and Cassius Marsh. Yeah,
I'm not so concerned about guys like Watt and Tuitt. I mean, I'm pretty sure they and I have a feeling they're as we said, look, you get the extra days here because of having the extra preseason game and all like that. Why no reason to kind of rush those guys in, especially a guy like Tuitt who missed so much time during later in the offseason there because of the tragedy he had in the family and all like that. About what? Dr. Mel put it out on Twitter a little while ago at Girl Surgeon there. What's the plausibility level of maybe, hey, close to getting a deal done here? And both sides kind of agreeing maybe that let's just hold off a little bit here before we get going full bore in practice there. I think it's plausible, but to what degree?
Mm-hmm. That thought has definitely crossed my mind because he's fine. I mean, he's 100% healthy. It appears he's going through drills and working out after practice, so there isn't any sort of minor issue or ramp up the same way it would be for Tuitt, I suppose. But I guess the thought is, I mean, how long can that go on for? Unless a deal was super close and going to be done in the next couple of days, is he just not going to really practice at all for 2.5, 3 weeks? I mean, maybe, I guess it is possible, but I feel like if that was the approach, then a deal would have to be really close and get done within the next, I don't know, 72 hours or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there's no reason to do anything between now and the Hall of Fame game, right? Because you're not going to play in that. So, why not just keep him to the side and keep him conditioned over there like that? Now, I would say maybe the week after that, if by the time that next preseason game rolls around and he's still not practicing, yeah, then maybe start questioning it there. But I think there is some level of plausibility to maybe the idea that, and maybe it's both sides. Let's not get him hurt here. At the start here, especially with the couple extra practices here and the Hall of Fame game on tap, which he obviously is not going to play in there. So I just wanted to bring that up because it caught my eye. Dr. Mel put it out on Twitter not too long ago there. I guess the other thing I would ask is, man, sure would be nice to get this offensive line to get some real snaps together, even though they are a little bit, reporting early and all like that. We've talked a lot of times about the continuity and things like that. And man, you got Dotson coming out. I think you said in your report, second string today, but just to kind of go through the motions because he's not 100%. Mm-hmm. You got Coward in there at starting left guard. You don't have a Core in there doing the heavy lifting during the team portion, I don't guess, at left tackle. Right. Obviously, Banner's still recovering there. I mean, thank goodness they went out and got Trey Turner, huh?
Yeah, they've had more guys of their projected starters sitting out to start camp than they have actually participating. The only two starters that have gone through team so far have been Kendrick Green and Trey Turner. And so, yeah, you want to see those guys get back, and obviously still a ways to go here, but they're getting closer. I mean, I think Dotson's getting closer. Yeah, it was weird. He was second team when they did some of the on-air stuff very early in practice, and that wasn't part of any individual work and certainly not teamwork once they all got together, 11 on 11. So it was kind of weird to see Dotson second team, but maybe just knowing that Coward was going to run first team today and team, they wanted to keep Coward in his spot. So something to watch, but I think Dotson at least took a first noticeable step today, putting on helmet, putting on pads, and working out on the side a little bit.
And I think Bob Labriola keeps hitting on the fact that, boy, the longer that J.C. Hotzenhauer stays out with that, I guess it's a left knee, isn't it? I don't think anybody's specifically termed it that, but I think Dr. Mel seems to think it might be MCL sprain or something like that. But the longer he's sidelined, he's probably going to lose the race to Kendrick Green anyway. But it certainly doesn't help his cause.
No, it doesn't. Again, I think he's very close. I think he'll be back maybe it could be tomorrow, but I think maybe by Monday when this team comes back from their off day Sunday, he's probably good to go. But yeah, all those guys need reps. So it has definitely been kind of a mashup unit of an offensive line. And for a group that is to me, the X factor, the biggest question mark for not only the offense, but the entire team, you want to see those guys get back, get healthy, and play together.
All right, so I take it we're going to see a lot of Joe Haig, and tell us who we're going to see a lot of in the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, it'll be. I think we'll see Kendrick Green a good bit. Haig, Coward will probably play a ton. John LeGlue will play, I think considerable snaps. So all those second string guys. BJ Finney will probably see the second half at center or something like that. Maybe play a little bit of guard as well. But the bodies aren't super deep right now along the offensive line in terms of guys who can play in teams. So they're basically running just two lines of offensive linemen and team right now.
All right, where to now?
Let's start with the quarterbacks. We'll go through things position by position. Before I do that, I do want to thank our sponsor, Touring Plans in Lantesta. If you're planning a trip to Disney, be sure to call on those guys to help you kind of plan your schedule and get things situated, because that can be a big undertaking, and you don't want to make a mistake when you're planning a big trip with a family or whoever for something like Disney. So check out touringplans.com, and our thanks for them being a continued sponsor of Steelers Depot and our training camp coverage. And shout out to Tim Rice, who took great photos for the website today. Two quarterbacks. Ben had a half day, so he should have an off day, I think, tomorrow. He had the first team session, 7 shots, and then a third down session later in practice. So that kind of gave more reps to other guys today. Josh Dobbs getting team reps for the first time, but Dwayne Haskins still very clearly running ahead of Dobbs right now. I said yesterday, would there be a rotation where, Haskins gets more snaps one day and Dobbs more snaps the next? Not the case. Haskins clearly ahead of Dobbs right now. Of course, they do want to get a longer look at Haskins because they know less about Haskins than they do Josh Dobbs. But Haskins ahead of him, and more importantly, playing really well. Thought he had a really sharp practice today and finished things off in that 2-minute drill with a touchdown to a wide-open Rico Bussey.
Oh, who was that? Was that Dobbs or Haskins?
Haskins.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was reading quite a few different firsthand accounts there, and it sounded like this might have been Haskins' best. I mean, obviously he hadn't had many training camp practices so far, but this might have been his best showing to date.
I think so. I've only been there for 2, so this is not a whole lot to compare to, I suppose. Not even like the others, but I thought he showed velocity, which he's always shown, but more accuracy. The decision making, had a really strong throw off balance to Kevin Rader at the end of one team session, not that 2-minute drill, but earlier in practice, and that was a really strong throw, moving to his left and put it on the money. And Rader made a good catch away from his body as well. So yeah, Haskins, showing overall good accuracy. Still a couple things to work on, I think, but I think today was a really good practice for Dwayne Haskins.
What would you say are some of the major things he still has to work on there?
I don't know if there's been one thing I've seen so far that's really stuck out. I feel like there's a bit of a hitch in his release. I mean, not that you can really fix that or trying to fix that right now, but there's a little bit of a wind-up or a hitch, I think. But still accuracy.
A little Byron Leftwich.
Yeah, it doesn't drop down as far. I don't know. I'll have to really kind of go through and look at it maybe whenever we get preseason action, but just a little something whenever he's rearing back. But just want to continue to focus on accuracy and just occasionally some stuff's a little, off the mark. But I mean, that's going to happen with quarterbacks and new receivers and stuff like that. But I think overall it's been impressive. But again, the thing with Haskins is like this is an environment he's going to shine where the physical talent's going to win out and you don't have to worry about getting hit and pressure and those kind of things. And so how that translates to inside stadiums has always kind of been his issue. I'm sure this guy's looked good in practice since he was like 11 years old just because he's been so physically gifted.
How much are they working him under center versus in the shotgun?
I try to track that a little bit. I mean, it just depends on the session. Some of the more run sessions are going to be under center naturally a little bit more. Definitely feel like this team has been under center more with Matt Canada than other offenses in past years, but I couldn't give you a great number of what that percentage is. It's not any different for Haskins than it would be Rudolph or Dobbs or even Ben to some degree. So it's probably, I don't know, a third of the time. But again, it just depends on what session you're talking. In 2-minute, of course, today they were in shotgun every single snap.
All right, and Rudolph today?
I will say this. He had a strike to Juju down the right side. Would have been a 60-yard touchdown. Juju beat James Pierre, and Juju just dropped it, and that would have been a big play we would have been talking about. But no one's going to remember that play right now. It was a good throw from Rudolph. Juju just a flat-out drop. But I know the comment from Mike Tomlin and in that 2-minute drill was that basically, you got to throw the ball in the end zone. And in that 2-minute drill, Rudolph led him down to the 3, but they ran out of time. It was a lot of short throws, a lot of stuff underneath, not trying to push the football and make a big-time play. And, Tomlin said that's on everyone, not just Rudolph. But it didn't really see Rudolph push the ball downfield much today besides that would-be touchdown to Juju.
All right, and he threw at least one interception. Didn't Norwood get him? Was that it looked? Was that just an ill-advised miscommunication? Because it made it sound like it was nobody there except Norwood.
Yeah, I couldn't tell who that was for. I didn't see a receiver in the area. I didn't get tipped or wasn't even close to being caught by a receiver. So I couldn't tell you exactly what Rudolph was thinking on that play. But yeah, threw it over the middle of the field. There was pressure. Bugs was coming up the middle, so it might have been a pressure-induced thing, which isn't great news for Rudolph, obviously. But Norwood with the interception and had a good run back and took advantage of the poor throw or poor whatever happened on that play.
Yeah, too bad they wouldn't let us look at the tape. We could tell them real quick.
I'm just curious quickly. Were there more fans posting videos of plays today? I saw the Steelers had an alert like, please don't film practice.
No, I imagine if you look hard enough, there's probably a few more out there. But it looked like there was actually less. Maybe today, and even the ones that I saw today were shot so far off in the distance, you in a lower angle, you really couldn't tell anything anyway.
Gotcha. I'm just curious about that. Probably, I mean, it wasn't as intense or competitive, and less fans because of the rain. So, just wondering about that. Obviously, we're not allowed to take video, and we're not going to even try to skirt that kind of stuff. But just wondering because I saw a bunch of it floating out yesterday.
All right, what position on to now? How did Dobbs do in his limited time?
Yeah, I thought he did well. Actually, the very first snap that he had play action and hit Freiermuth perfectly down the right sideline. Freiermuth made a really strong leaping catch, but it was an on-the-money kind of throw. So I thought Dobbs was good whenever he was in there and pushed the ball downfield, but the reps were pretty light. And even with Ben having an off day, there still wasn't a lot there for Josh Dobbs. He did not work in 2 minutes. That went to Rudolph. Again, that drive stalled at the 3. They ran out of time. Haskins scored on a 30-yard touchdown to Rico Bussey. And so Dobbs didn't get to participate.
What do you think? We're going to see we're going to see Andy Rudolph in the Hall of Fame game? You would think so, right?
Yeah, I think he'll start it still. I mean, he's just the incumbent. He'll probably play the first 2 series. I think Haskins gets maybe the next into the third quarter, and Dobbs maybe the fourth quarter, something like that.
Okay. Man, you got some experienced quarterbacks here, and normally in a first preseason game, generally, especially a Hall of Fame game, you see a lot of inexperienced quarterbacks in those games, So I guess what I'm getting at here is, man, you expecting even though there'll be a lot of other inexperienced players all over the field on offense for the Steelers, the fact that they've got some experienced quarterbacks in there, would lead you to at least hope that they'll be able to move the football a little bit, maybe score a few points.
Yeah, I hope so. But, with that knowledge comes with good expectations and high expectations, because those guys need to play well, because they're not the rookies stepping in the stadium for the first time. All those guys have played on Sundays. So all those guys need to play like they've played on Sundays before.
That's my point. I mean, the expectations should be pretty, as far as preseason games go, it should be pretty high, I would think,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Haskins a little more mobile than I thought. I think he can scramble a little bit more than I kind of remembered coming out of college and his time at Washington.
All right, what position group now?
Go to running backs now. Don't have a whole lot for those guys individually because they were in shells today, and so there's no contact, and it's really hard to gauge it a whole lot. Najee Harris made a nice one-handed catch and just, on-air kind of stuff, but still showing that catch radius, ability to make plays. As a receiver, still saw some pony stuff with McFarland and Harris, and I think Samuel's kind of mixed in with the backups as well, so still seeing pony, but don't have a whole lot in terms of the individual performance of those guys today. Saw more Benny Snell today than I did yesterday as well.
And I guess a little less Caleb Ballage?
Yeah, I mean, they all kind of get mixed in, so it's hard to really say, who is the second string guy right now. I would say it's McFarland. I mean, they kind of all run together, but I think McFarland has that versatility, and his relationship with Matt Canada, their time together at Maryland, is giving him an early leg up for playing time and usage and roles. And his hands have improved, too. Made a couple of good catches today and just kind of, I think, has worked on that a bit.
My terrible take today was about Kalen Ballage, and kind of looking ahead. I think he's going to get a lot of work in the Hall of Fame game at some point. And man, if he can stay healthy, and this guy had over 47% success rate so far during his career. And obviously, one of the things you highlighted right out of the chute when he was signed was his short yardage ability, which I think is something like 19 of 26 in third and fourth down situations where 3 or less yards are needed. I mean, that's strong, but the game is obviously a lot more than third and short situations there. But 47 point, I forget what the exact percentage was, across the board success rate for him for his career. And in comparison sakes, I think for his career, James Conner's around 49.2 or something along those lines. So, not great for Ballage, but it's a little something to work with. And with his special teams ability or previous special teams ability, that's a guy that you think should be able to take the bull by the horns, or look, he's got one toe kind of out of the NFL right now, if you ask me. So if he's going to stick around, you need to see him have a good rest of the summer in training camp.
I agree. I think he's got good backup value where he can catch, he can block, he can play special teams, got a little short yardage value, not talented enough to be a starter, just not explosive enough, and just, his career numbers have been really poor, not going to be your guy, but I think he's a good backup kind of talent, but it is still competitive, and there's no guarantee he makes the team.
All right, where to?
We'll go to tight ends now. And
Trey, there's no sense talking about Trey Edmonds, right?
Very little. I mean, he's got the special teams value, backup fullback, kind of wears those hats, but doesn't wear anything particularly well. All
right. Speaking of fullback, Derek Watt getting around okay?
Yeah, he's out there. I mean, it's good that he's healthy. I know last year he had those injuries and came off surgery the last offseason, kind of limited him in training camp, but caught a pass yesterday, was out there for a couple snaps today. Not a whole lot to note about, but he's out there.
All right, carry on.
Go to tight end. So with Eric Ebron out, a lot of reps for the backup guys, Pat Freiermuth, Zach Gentry, Kevin Rader, Dax Raymond. Raymond, of course, leaving practice without injury. Mentioned that nice snag that Rader had from Haskins for about an 18-yard gain on a corner route in practice. But I thought Freiermuth, the hands look good, made that really strong, leaping catch on the right sideline from Dobbs, off of play action, by the way. And Zach Gentry. I think I've seen improvement from Gentry, at least as a receiver. I'm not sure on a blocker yet, but the catch radius is, of course, enormous, and he's being able to play to that size, and they're just a tough guy to deal with for linebackers to try to just compete with a guy that's 12 feet tall, as you said yesterday. So I am seeing at least some level of improvement in Gentry playing better to his size than I've seen in the past.
No, I said 6'12".
6'12". Thank you.
No, the thing with him, with Gentry, I remember still breaking down his targets, his last season targets, and doing full kind of contextualizations at Michigan there. I worried a lot less about him. Obviously he's not a refined route runner by any stretch of the imagination, but he did make a few catches down the field and able to run this seam pretty decent. I mean, I kind of thought that he looked every bit quarterback turned wide receiver basically, but I mean he was able to use that big body of his and make a few plays down the field there. Obviously the huge thing on him the whole time has been the blocking aspect, and what is he going to give you in special teams, and those questions are not going to go away with him, I don't think, until he really shows us something in a few training camp practice. Maybe this next time when they do what they usually do, the tight ends on the what's the drill that Mike Thomas says they usually look forward to, where they do the tight ends on, is it the linebackers, the inside linebacker?
The coverage drill?
Yeah. No, was that the one he was talking about, where it's a little bit more even balance for the tight ends?
I didn't even listen to Tomlin, so I'm not even sure.
Today.
Today they did do tight ends and running backs on like linebackers and stuff today. And Gentry, I was watching receivers DB, but Gentry made at least one or two nice catches there. So I'm not sure what Tomlin was referencing, but yeah.
Well, more than anything, got to see him in some situations where he's into the line of scrimmage, having to block those base ends.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. That's where the value is, because hopefully we're not going to get into a situation where this offense is relying on a lot of offensive passing production snaps out of a guy like Zach Gentry. And be quite honest with you, other than him maybe playing a third tight end role occasionally, that's about it there. So I mean, he really, in my opinion, based on what we've already seen out of Kevin Radar just late last year and all, it still seems like a huge mountain for him to climb on, when it comes to special teams and ability to block, because those kind of things are the things that's going to make the roster for him, not the other things, in my opinion. I mean, it's good that he can do the other stuff there, and maybe that's kind of stuff will warrant him, if he doesn't make the 53, sticking on the practice squad. And who knows, but maybe he will beat out a guy like Kevin Radar. But man, those third tight ends usually dress, and when they usually dress, they usually have to offer something up on special teams for you.
Yeah. No, that's really well said. And last year, they weren't even dressing a third tight end most of the time. It was just the top two. And you have Ebron and Freiermuth, they're going to be red zone weapons, and they're big bodies. So, I mean, Gentry's a bigger body, but it's not so unique in this room where, it's not like the starter's a 6'3", guy, and the other guy's an H-back type of guy. I mean, Gentry has size, but so does the rest of this room.
Going back and thinking about that pick now, and them missing out on the LSU Moreau. You look back and what it's almost like a settle for. Well, we need a tight end, this is the next best. In other words, the drop off was right there after Moreau, I think. Mm-hmm. And I'm almost convinced. I bet they thought Moreau was going to be on the board still when they picked in that round. I bet they didn't think he'd go as early as he did.
And with Gentry, he's still going to be just basically a straight line guy. I mean, he can run, vertically down the seam, or he can run a crosser or anything else. It's going to take a while to slow down and break down. Have to use his size to box out and be physical. But he's just a big guy that's kind of hard to get him to turn and change directions.
How good was that catch by Freiermuth?
Really good. Really, really strong. Leaping down the right sideline, good body control, made the catch, went to the ground with it. I thought it was. I mean, the dude's got great hands. I mean, the dude can make some really tough catches. Not a very good athlete, marginal at best, but the guy does not let too many, out of his hands.
All right.
I'll go to the receivers actually next. There's actually a good bit to talk about there. Star of the day, Rico Bussey. How about that? Undrafted free agent receiver out of Hawaii. Had some really tough catches. I mean, the one that we'll talk about, the cap practice, the 30-yarder from Haskins, he was wide open. Somebody blew a coverage. I don't know who it was, unfortunately. So it's not like Bussey had to do a whole lot on that one, but had some really strong plays early in practice. One down the right sideline. Justin Lane tipped it. Bussey came down with it still. So a good concentration and focus and finish to that play. Some stuff in receiver DB were impressive as well. A couple of big catches today, getting vertical, getting downfield, not just underneath check down, curl route kind of stuff. So you like to see those receivers that are making some splash plays down the field.
Yeah, via North Texas, right?
Yeah, was he North Texas first and then Hawaii, I believe?
I think that because he had a knee injury in one of those years there, and I think his eligibility was up, and then I think he went over to I think Hawaii after that. But you go. The good thing is we have a draft profile that once he started making a couple plays today, I pulled up on the site and all like that, and I tweeted that back out today. Man, quite a few plays. You go back in North Texas, even 2018 season, I think 10 receptions resulting in 25 or more yards, 25 15 yards or more, and he had 68 receptions for 1,000 yards and 12 TDs, and that was 2018, I believe, at North Texas. And then only played a couple of games in 2019. Even so, he had just 5 receptions, and 3 of them went for 25 plus yards there. And in 2020, obviously, with a Hawaii, 31 receptions, 274 yards. He only had 1 of 25 yards or longer there. I think one of the quick things that kind of stick out, and he's able to, at least from what I've seen, and you tell me if you've seen it so far in a couple of practices, they're able to get off the line of scrimmage and stack some of those corners a little bit on the outside. And I think the other thing that stuck out to me on as far as his college tape goes is he's got some contested catch ability in him there, especially kind of 50-50 ball type situations there. So tell me what what has stuck out about him so far, if I'm close.
Yeah, no, I mean it's I have to go back through some of my notes to see exactly some of those plays, but just a guy that's getting vertical, getting downfield, making some of those tough catches that, again, are tipped up in the air, or, some combat type of stuff. He had some really good battles today with Steven Denmark we'll talk about here in a moment, but just getting noticed because he is making big plays downfield, and that's going to be the path to get noticed and to get more reps, is just to do that, not just catch 5-yard curls all day. So anytime a guy is, showing up and getting vertical, I think that's at least worth talking about.
Him and Matthew in the running right now as far as maybe a top wide receiver outside of those top 5?
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of it's going to come down to special teams play and coverage ability, and so I think those things will get decided inside stadiums. But today was a really good day for Rico Bussey, and can he stack those good practices and turn those into good games? That'll be the challenge. Remember Damon Patterson from several years ago, Camp Darlin, first week of practice, and then he fizzles out by the end. So this thing's got to go wire to wire, not just one good practice in shelves, no less today. So it is just that, but it was a good practice.
I think we have now reached the end, though, of it was several years ago of us seeming like we constantly talk every time of this year. Boy, how deep this wide receiver depth chart is. Looking, even beyond the starters and all. I mean, it really feels like we've come to the end of that, where it's just a couple now outside of those starters there that are really worth talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously 4 deep with the starters, but they're not 6, 7, 8 deep. Maybe the way they were. At least we talked about it.
Or at least like we thought might have been, right?
Yeah, the way it looks on paper. Chase Claypool, by the way, just a jump ball machine, ability to time his jumps, contort, adjust to the football in the air. I mean, Cam Sutton's given us some good fits and some good battles, but I mean, this guy's just a great leaper, great timing, and just catches seemingly everything.
All right.
For the offensive line, not a whole lot to note. Again, shells, they weren't in O-line, D-line today because they weren't in pads, full pads. So just from an injury standpoint, a lot of the guys are waiting to get reps, waiting to see Zach Banner out there, waiting to see Chuck Lumacore, waiting to see Kevin Dotson and J.C. Hassenauer. But a lot of reps there for guys like Kendrick Green, who, again, snaps, still a couple that weren't great today, but I'm not freaking out about it, but I do want to point it out in case it is a pattern. And then Rashad Coward getting a lot of snaps, and Dan Moore running first-team left tackle still.
Real quick on Rico, he mostly running the Z or what?
He's mostly been on the outside. I don't know if it's been X or Z. Probably more Z, but I just haven't I don't think I've charted that. I'll have to go back and see if I have that somewhere in a note somewhere.
All right, how much do you see with the first team stuff? There was all that talk about Juju and wanting to move around more and all like that. Do they seem to be kind of interchanging some of those guys and letting Juju play a little bit on the outside some? And if so, is Chase going down in the slot? How's that working out?
Yeah, I mean, they have a little bit. I mean, this offense, last year they mixed and matched. This year they're mixing and matching. I don't know. It doesn't feel a whole lot different than last year, to be honest. So I think, it's primarily it's been, Claypool and Johnson outside. Johnson is the X, Claypool the Z, Juju the F, the slot guy. But I think, Claypool and Juju, I think, have moved around a little bit.
All right. Carry on.
The offensive line, not a whole lot to note there, so we'll kind of go past that. Same with defensive line. Again, it's just tough to evaluate the trench guys on a day like this when they're not, full contact, they're not tackling, they're not in pads. I'm trying to see some of the nickel pairings and get some. I think behind the lock guys, you're seeing Isaiah Buggs, Henry Mondeau, Isaiah Lattimore getting some of those second-team reps and second-team snaps in nickel and in base. And so those are guys to watch. It's really tough to come by for snaps for guys like Calvin Taylor and TJ Carter and even Abdullah Anderson to a slightly lesser degree. But just want to continue to watch this battle and see how these young competitive guys look.
Yeah, a lot of those guys you'll probably we'll learn a little bit more about, especially in this first preseason game in the second half. I have a feeling,
even the first half, because they're not playing Hayward, they're not playing Tuitt. I wouldn't play Alu. Yeah, I mean, you're not playing any of those guys.
Get your roster sheet printed out, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Your numerical list pulled out. We're going to probably need it here.
Mm-hmm. With the linebackers, again, some guys missing today. No Devin Bush in team, no TJ Watt in team, no Melvin Ingram in team. So your first team outside linebackers were Alex Highsmith and Cassius Marsh. At inside linebacker, the first team pairing was Robert Spillane and UG3. Second team was Marcus Allen and Buddy Johnson. The second team outside linebackers, I think, were Jameer Jones and probably was Quincy Roche. I have to go back and look at my notes on that, but not a whole lot to note from their individual performance today. I thought Allen did a decent job in coverage, but it's worth noting that UG3 right now running first team with Devin Bush out.
Yeah, that was one of the key things when you started going through it there, and I think you noted that somewhere on Twitter as well too. That's a huge plus for him. He's a guy that we've talked about off and on, and I think me and my terrible take not too terribly long ago saying, man, injuries with this guy. If this guy can make it through a training camp and stay healthy, because there have been moments with him. Especially on special team. Look, Danny Smith's going to be pounding the table for him if the guy can walk. Because you just look. I think he led the team before getting injured last year, something like 8 or 7 total special teams tackles, and then then obviously started having the injury concerns again. So and then he's. As far as athleticism goes, as far as that inside linebacker room goes right now, for non-starters, he's probably one of the most athletic ones they have in there, right?
Who was that?
UG3.
UG3, yeah. No, I think he's a good athlete. The tape's been good whenever he's been healthy, in both defense in the preseason and on special teams. So, it's always been that caveat of if and when healthy. But if he is and when he is, then I think he's got a good chance to make it.
What would you put his chances at right now?
Yeah.
And obviously that's let's assume that he makes it through the preseason unscathed and all like that. I mean, you put him at like 70%, 75%, higher.
I was thinking 60. I think he's inside looking out. I also still think they're going to keep Marcus Allen, and of course they're going to keep Buddy Johnson. So that's 5. So that means you're keeping 5, which is possible. You keep 5 and keep 4 outside linebackers, which I think looks kind of likely right now, just to keep 4 edge guys. But Marcus Allen, by the way, the starting up back on the punt team, who was going to replace Jordan Dangerfield, who was going to have that role, very important role, quarterback of that unit, and it went to Marcus Allen.
That's a key Blues clues right there, isn't it?
It is. I mean, to be fair, Trey Edmonds was first team left wing. Trey Edmonds will not be first team left wing against Buffalo, but usually that up back spots, you can really learn a good deal from it. And so they're trusting Allen for that spot. And there have been times where that guy's gotten cut, so it's not impossible, but it's unlikely. So I think Allen's, and he's having a good camp, I think, as well. So good chance for him to make it as well.
All right, and of course now his second camp as really as an inside linebacker now. So he should be moving around like he knows a little bit more like what he's doing now.
I wonder if he's gained weight. He looks the same to me. I don't think it doesn't look like he's gained a lot of weight, but I wonder if anyone could ask him that if he has bulked up a little bit.
All right.
At corner, two guys I want to talk about today. Stefan Denmark. Is it Stefan or Steven? Do you know how to say his first name?
I've
Steven?
always said Steven, but I'll have to go back and look at an interview again. It's been a while since I've looked at an interview with him, I think.
Well, he's making me learn how to pronounce his first name because I think he had a good practice.
We just
today.
talked about him yesterday.
Yeah. Right. A guy that I think has those traits that are coming together, the size, the speed, the length, a couple of breakups today, nearly had an interception and 7-on-7, just dropped it, but ran with Matthew Sexton. We talked about how fast Sexton is, and Denmark ran step for step with him and should have and nearly picked it off. And so had two breakups in receiver DB, one against Bussey, one against Isaiah McCoy, and that's a drill that is very much tailored for the offense. It's a tough drill on those DBs, and so having any sort of breakups, one of them is good in my book, and two is really good. And I thought, even in team, you saw some of those plays of the athleticism, the length, playing the pocket, and playing the catch point overall. And so that's a guy that's making some big plays. They're not the interceptions, but the breakups. And I'd like to see that.
How do you suppose they're going to use Denmark on special teams? Because obviously, if he's going to make any noise and make this roster, can he play gunner, jam, or anything? He's a big enough guy, you would think.
Yes, with the size and length, he should be able to be a jammer, to be a gunner, to be a kick coverage guy. So kind of wear those hats that cornerbacks typically seem to wear. I think him, I don't know if he'll be a starting gunner necessarily, but I think he'll probably get time there, and I'll be paying attention to that throughout practices for sure. But yeah, I think it's a guy that has some value there and is making plays on defense, and that's a good way to kind of try to stick around.
You see most people been playing right outside cornerback, Denmark?
Oh, it's in my notes. I say that a lot in these podcasts. I'll have to double check, but right. I'm trying to think. I think it's been right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll obviously see him a lot in the Hall of Fame game as well, too. And probably the other guy you're going to talk about is James Pierre, I'm hoping, right?
Yeah, Pierre had a forced fumble in 7-on-7s and against Najee Harris, and that is just 7-on-7s, but still making a splash play there. I thought he did well in receiver DB, but the other corner I was going to talk about was Justin Lane. Okay. He just got picked on a decent amount, and even the one near breakup he had today against Bussey, it tipped up in the air, and Bussey still caught it, so the play wasn't finished. And I'm just not seeing the big splash plays. And for these corners, you don't have to have an interception every single play, every single day even. But I want to see guys that are making plays in the football and separating the ball at the catch point. And I'm just not seeing that from Justin Lane right now. I'm seeing that from the other guys. And so again, it is just 2 days in, but I'm not seeing the sizzle from Justin Lane, that I think he kind of needs at this point of his career.
Man, if there's any indication too, when you have Mike Tomlin after practice, kind of unprovoked, talking about, well, we gave Joe Hayden the day off today, and really the reason why, let's see, a guy like Joe Hayden a day off, it gives you a guy like James Pierre an opportunity to run first group reps and compete against guys like Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson and others. Unless there's a typo in there, I did not see Justin Lane's name. And that's not good.
Pierre was with the ones. Justin Lane was not the starter today.
And we have pretty much we had said at the end of last season, it certainly looks like Pierre's jumped him, and there was some pushback, I think, from even some media during the offseason, right? Saying, "Oh no, Lane still got a spot on the depth chart and all like that." No, not anymore. He doesn't. So now we're in territory, I think, now where we're really starting to wonder, can Justin Lane do enough to keep his 53-man roster spot?
Absolutely. And I had him off my 53 before camp, had him off all offseason. Now that could change, obviously, for injury or play. So we're not, erasing his name entirely yet. But 2 days in, I'm just not seeing it. Because, again, for corners today's NFL, you got to make big plays. It's not tackle the catch and get the guy down anymore. That's just not how the system works, not how the NFL works anymore. So you got to be able to make some splash. You're going to get beat. You're going to give up yards and catches. Every corner's going to do that, even the good ones. But you got to at least provide some positives in your favor. And I don't see any horrendous negatives from Lane, but I'm not seeing those positives either. And at the catch point, he's losing, it feels like, almost every single time.
You still had 6 corners, right? Or did you go with 5 corners on your 53?
Oh, I had Shakur Brown. I don't remember if he was 5 or 6.
You had Millette, you had Hayden, you had Cameron Sutton, you had James Pierre. You didn't have Justin Lane.
I had 5. Yeah, I had 5.
Okay,
Hayden, Sutton, Pierre, Millette, Brown.
Okay, so if they did keep 6, and let's say Lane is out, who is Denmark in the driver's seat right now for that 6th spot? Would you say?
Yeah, as of the guys right now, again, just 2 days in from our vantage point. But yeah, I would say so. But again, special teams, who plays well there, I think that spot, is going to be determined by some coverage and team stuff than it is defense.
Now, have Pierre and Lane been playing opposite sides? I mean, could we see those two actually start the Hall of Fame game on the outside opposite each other?
Yes, I think that's a decent chance of that happening, yeah. Whenever Hayden was in the lineup yesterday, for example, second team was Pierre and Tristan Lane working second team outside corners. So that is, I think, certainly plausible and possible for the Hall of Fame game.
That's what I'm rooting for. I'd like to see both those young corners get some time in that game and see if they can sink or swim. Yep. Obviously, been a lot of good stuff about Pierre and not so much on Lane, but I would throw him out there and give him a chance to fight for it,
Mm-hmm. And a couple other quick notes. Shakur Brown, third team nickel. That's a guy that unless something changes in the Hall of Fame game, probably will not have on my next roster prediction, just based on where things are at right now. And he was a camp darling, pre-camp darling and all that kind of stuff, but just very quiet to start. And it appears that Antoine Brooks Jr. and Arthur Millette are rotating slot reps. Millette started yesterday. Brooks started to start a camp, and Brooks was back as the first team slot corner today. So I feel like there's just a 50-50 rotation there with those guys.
All right, so not looking great for Shakur Brown, barring injuries or something happen then.
Yeah, very early, and so I don't want to, take all the air out of that balloon, but just there hasn't been because we talked him up quite a bit, myself included, but I just haven't seen that, translate on the practice field.
All right, safety position, Norwood making a couple of plays, right?
Yeah, making plays, and that's what got him drafted. Being able to play the football in the air and take good angles and make good reads and break on the football. Had a pick and receiver DB 101 against Isaiah McCoy. It was a comeback route. He broke on it and undercut it and double caught it. And so that was maybe the one small negative there, but made the play overall and then picked off Rudolph in team. And so that's 2 interceptions on the day for him. And that's a guy that is not going to be super physical or a great run defender. And special teams is a little questionable with him just in terms of the size and physicality. But he's got to make splash plays, as I talked about. That's so important for I think any DB in today's NFL. Norwood, 2 picks today is doing quite that.
All right, who's number 4 safety then? Norwood right now?
You got Minka, Edmonds, Killebrew.
Well, I guess it'd be Killebrew. I mean, yeah, Killebrew is still. I keep forgetting about him because, But how would you list them past Minka and Edmonds right now?
Well, are we calling Brooks a safety still or a corner?
Yeah, good. That's a good question. I mean, he's supposedly lost a little bit of weight and all like that. That's a great question. It's going to be interesting. It's one of the things in the Hall of Fame game. Going to be interesting to see if they just stick him at that one position. You would think that they're not going to put too much on his plate, right?
Yeah. I mean, right now he's a slot corner, so I guess I'll consider him that. So, I mean, in that sense, you have Edmonds and Minka and Killebrew, then yeah, Norwood probably number 4, I suppose.
Okay. Hopefully this team will go out and get him a safety.
Yeah, that's also I still think very much on the table.
All right. So what else you got for us? What do we have left?
That's it for the position groups, offense and defense. Punting today, good punting battle between Jordan Berry and the very chonky Presley Harvin III. I thought both guys did well overall. I did the hang times and the distances. I have of the team punts. I did some punting kind of on air that I didn't count in my notes here. But in the team punts, I have Jordan Berry with an average of 4.26 seconds of hang time, 48.1 yards of distance. For Harvin, I have 4.21 seconds of hang time and 50.4 yards distance. So pretty even numbers overall. Berry's hang time slightly better. Harvin's yards slightly better. Just watching them, I think Berry was more consistent. Harvin had a couple of ones that just weren't as good. And so when it comes together, it is really pretty with Presley Harvin III. That's very much evident based on practice today and based on his Georgia Tech tape. But I'm just not seeing quite the consistency yet out of him. And that's the big thing I've circled for him to overtake and beat out Jordan Berry for this job.
Brings the heat, just doesn't know where it's going all the time, or what? Like a relief pitcher, like Wild Thing.
Yeah, like Rick Vaughn.
like
a little
Vaughn?
bit of that.
Give me Vaughn. Give me Presley.
He's got to wear the big glasses. I mean, it's just some shanks where there's some stuff. Just, he'll have some, and maybe that's a little bit of a product of he'll have some really great punts, and so just some punts that'll just normal just look worse because you have some really really impressive ones. But even just watching it, I just feel like Berry's a little more consistent overall. I think he was slightly better today than Presley Harvin. But when it comes together, I mean, even on the one that I tweeted out That was the on-air no rush. It was 70 yards, 4.82 seconds of hang time on a 70-yard punt. I mean, the dude, when it comes together, I mean, they're just rocketing off of his leg. But they don't always do that, and that's where the inconsistency comes into play.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin, said, kind of reminded you of Ray Guy, a couple of those, Ray Guy. Yeah, that was the guy for the Raiders, man, back in the day. He was, I guess he was the Sam Cooke of the day there for the Raiders. And obviously, Harvin was the Ray Guy award winner, right? Obviously.
So Tomlin called him Ray Guy today?
It was. Let me get the exact quote here, so I make sure I get it correct here. He said, let's see if I can find out. He said, was Presley Harvin putting on a hang time exhibition today? And Tomlin said he looked like Ray Guy a time or two, didn't he? He says, yeah, those guys have been battling. Talking about Barry and Harvin. He says those guys have been battling, and we respect all the battles that are going on out here. So he did reference a Ray Guy in there today.
Then the key phrase is a time or two, because there are times where that's happening.
Okay.
Another time or two where it's
fair enough.
Guy Ray. It's the opposite of it a little bit, but yeah, when it comes together, I mean, it is really pretty. So
a guy named Ray.
Yeah, a guy named Ray. He needs to be more Ray Guy than a guy named Ray. If he does that,
that's good.
That's his mission. There you go.
That's good. Congrats. All right. What
and
else?
We have the hang times, so we don't have to ask the question about the hang times, because we have the hang times for all yins.
All right. Anything else? Player of the day, maybe? Either one overall or both sides of the ball, or what have you? Dealer's choice here.
I think Bussy is going to get the headlines today, and deservedly so. I thought Denmark overall had a really good day. Those guys had some good battles themselves. Bussy versus Denmark, that'll probably continue, and they'll probably pit those guys together as in an sharpen iron mentality. And that's Dwayne Haskins, a strong day, not only for where he was running, but his actual play. And a 2-minute drill touchdown, even if it was aided by a busted coverage, is still a good way to end practice. So I'll go Haskins, Bussy, and Denmark for the positives, and Justin Lane on the negatives.
Okay, all right, sounds good. And you will be back, let's see, sort of a Friday Night Lights practice. What time does that get started?
5 o'clock, so sort of Friday Night Lights. 5 o'clock, so we'll have a podcast out pretty late come Friday.
Right, so stay up late tomorrow night, because it's going to be a late one by the time Alex gets back and gets his report filed and we get the podcast knocked out. We will obviously try to move it all along as quickly as we possibly can there. So give another shout-out to our buddy Lynn Testa and Touring Plans, Alex.
Yeah, again, big thanks to Touring Plans for being our Steelers training camp sponsor. If you're planning a trip to Disney, be sure to hit up touringplans.com and tell them you heard about them from us over on Steelers Depot. Again, planning a trip to Disney, those are the people in the team that you want to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I just went and looked at the website about 3 nights ago, and fantastic job, very user-friendly and all like that as well, too. So Lynn's obviously done that a while now, and it looks like, and he's been a sponsor of ours for quite a while as well, too. So shout out to Lynn and the people over at Touring Plans, and we hope you would support them absolutely there. So within that, Alex and I will be back yet again for a regular edition of the Terrible Podcast Friday morning. Going to be Podcast City around here for the next couple of weeks here. So we'll be back again, like I said, Friday morning, and then we'll follow it up later on the evening with a special edition training camp podcast recap. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for listening to this special edition of the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.